Now let us start with the topic of plant movements. As we all know that plants do not show locomotion or locomotory activities as like that in animals. And therefore they are considered to be as a fixed life at one place. But still, plants show locomotion or movement. But how does this movement can be seen? Let us study the various types of plant movements and the way they can be seen. There are mainly two types of plant movements. Which includes locomotory movement and curvature movement. Thus, these are the two types of movement which are exhibited by the plants. Let us start first with the locomotory movement. Locomotory movement can be defined as a type of movement that occurs due to protoplasm change or due to change in protoplasm or a movement that is shown by an organ or an individual. On this basis, locomotory movements can also be of two types. First is autonomous movement. In such a type of movement, no external factor is responsible for carrying out the movement. That is, no external factor is involved. Examples for such a type of movement includes amoebic movement, that is definitely the movement carried out by amoeba, which also involves plasmodium, or slime molds. That is the movement that is carried out by these organisms. Second type of movement that can be considered as an example of autonomous movement is ciliary movement. As we all know that cilia is a structure that is present within an organism in order to carry out the movement or locomotion. Such a ciliary movement occurs within species of Chlamydomonas and algae. The third type of movement occurs is circulatory movement. This type of movement generally occurs in Transdentia anther. The fourth and final type of movement that occurs under autonomous movement is rotation movement. Such a type of movement occurs due to change in the cytoplasmic activity, that is, occurs in cytoplasm that is present within the hydrilla leaves. Then comes the second type of locomotory movement, that is induced movement. Induced movement is a type of locomotory movement in which external factor is responsible for the movement. That is entirely opposite to that of the previous one, that is autonomous movement. Here can occur due to various factors like temperature or a touch, then chemicals or light. Such factors are responsible for the movement that is induced to form. The induced movement that is of locomotory type is caused by the external factor or caused as a response to the stimulus So, such a type of locomotory movement is known as taxis. On this basis, various types of induced movement occurs. For example, the first is phototaxis. It is a type of induced movement that occurs due to light. Example for such a type of movement is zoospores of the volvox. The second type of induced movement is chemotaxis. That is the induced movement that is carried out with the help of chemicals. Example of such a type of induced movement involves the antherozoids of bryophytes and pteridophytes. Then the third type of induced movement is thermotaxis. This type of induced movement generally occurs due to temperature change. Example of such a movement is the movement that is carried out by diatoms. Then the fourth and the last type of induced movement is thigmotaxis. it is an induced movement which is caused by the touch, example of such a type of movement occurs in zoospore of the Odigenium. Thus, these are all the type locomotory movement. Now let us start with the second type of plant movement, that is curvature movement. Such a movement is generally shown by the higher plants. Which help them to orient their organs for more work efficiency. So that their work efficiency gets increased. However, uneven or unbalanced growth occurs due to it, and such an uneven or unbalanced growth causes movement in a curved form, that is, causes movement of curvature type. Similarly to the locomotor type, curvature movements are also of two types. First, autonomous movement, and second, induced movement. The definition of both these movements is similar to that of the locomotor type, except the movement is curved manner. That is, in autonomous, no external factor is involved. On the contrary, in induced type, external factor is responsible. So let us start with the first movement, that is autonomous curvature movement. As said, in this movement, no external factor is involved. For causing such uneven growth. Such a type of autonomous movements occurs in various types, for example, epinasty, in such movement, the growth ratio of the upper surface is more than that of the lower surface of the leaves. Then the second type of movement that comes under autonomous induced movement is hyponasty. In this, the growth ratio of lower surface of leaves is more than that of the upper surface. which is entirely opposite to the epinesting. The third type of movement that comes under this autonomous one is mutation. It is a type of zigzag movement which generally occurs in the apical bud of the stem. Then another type of autonomous curvature movement is variation. Such a type of movement generally occurs in the pulsation in the leaflets of plants like Desmodium, gyrinus. That is, all the plants that come under Desmodium species. And fifth and the final type of autonomous curvature movement is circumnutation. This type of movement generally occurs in the spiral and helical growth of the shoot in climbers and tendriller plants. Thus, these curvature movements can be in any form, like the spiral, helical, or tendril shape, which all comes under the autonomous curvature movements. Now let us study the second type of curvature movement, that is induced movement. Induced movement is a type of curvature movement in which external stimulus is necessary. That is, the movement occurs only in presence of external stimulus or factor. Such a type of movement are also of two types. First, tropism, and second, nastism. Tropism is also known as tropic movements, and nastism is known as nastic movements. Let us first of all begin with the tropism or tropic movements. Tropism is a type of induced curvature movement in which the movement of curvature in a plant organ is induced by the external and directional stimulus. That is, movement here of an organ occurs in presence of external and directional stimulus. So such a type of movement is known as tropism. Thus, here the curvature that is induced by the tropism is having a directional relationship with the direction of the stimulus, that is directly associated with the directional stimulus, and therefore various kinds of tropism can be deduced on the basis of directional stimulus. This classification is generally into main four types. That is, first, phototropism. It can be understood from the term that the tropism that occurs due to light. Here, in this type of movement, stem shows positive phototropism because it is towards the light, while the roots shows negative phototropism. The second type of tropism movement is geotropism. That is the tropism movement that is caused due to gravity. And so it is obvious that here stems would show negative geotropism, while the roots show positive geotropism. Since the roots are towards the gravity while the stems are located against the gravity. Third type of tropism movement is hydrotropism. That is a tropic movement which is caused due to water. Generally, such a type of tropism movement occurs in the higher plants. That is, roots of the higher plants. Fourth type of tropism movement is thigmotropism. That is, the tropic movement which is caused due to touch. That is, stimulus is in the form of touch. This figure depicts the various types of tropism plants. For example, tulip, that is a phototropic plant, and geotropic plant, the radical of maize seedling. Then comes the second type of induced curvature movement, that is nastism, which is known as Nastic Movement. Here the movement depends on the presence and intensity of the external stimulus. That is the stimulus or any other factor, whether it is present and if present, its intensity decides various types of nastic movement. However, it is not necessary that it should affect any definite direction. Unlike tropism, based on this external stimulus direction, these movements are classified into various types. For example, photonasty, that is the nastism movement which occurs in presence of light. For example, the lotus flower or sunflower that open only in the morning. The second type of movement is thermonasty. That is the nastic movement which takes place due to temperature change. For example, crocus flower, which opens only at high temperature. The third type of nastic movement is hydronasty. Definitely such type of nastic movement takes place with the help of water, that is external stimulus here acts as water. Here the nastic movement generally occurs with the help of major water flow or rain. And the fourth type of nastism movement is known as thigmonasty. That is the nastism that takes place with the help of touch, which acts as a stimulus. The best example for thigmonastic plants is Mimosa pudica. This is the scientific name of touch me not plant. Definitely you all might have heard about this plant because of its sensitive nature. And therefore is termed as sensitive plant. This figure depicts the structure of a Mimosa pudica plant, that is touch me not plant. As it can be seen from the figure, before the touch, the plant appears to be normal, green and healthy. But as soon as the plant or the flower is touched, it becomes dull and dry. This is a type of thigmonastic movement. Other examples of thigmonastic movement includes Drosera. This figure depicts the image of the Drosera plant, that is thigmonastic plant. Thus this is all about the plant movements, its type and function.